All right, guys, we'll keep it in the East. We'll move over to the NFC side of the house for our next draft preview. The NFC East was a bit of a stinker last year and sees the Giants and Redskins drafting in the top 5, while the Eagles and Cowboys are sort of in the middle of the pack at 21st and 17th, respectively. The Giants need everything. The Eagles need anyone who can catch. The Cowboys need cheap help. Now the Redskins are going to be happy with Chase Young. Let's go ahead and start with that, Jay. Washington with the second overall pick. Who you got?
Yeah, the problem with the Redskins here is they're going to take Chase Young with that second overall pick, you would think. But that's not one of their biggest needs. But, best player available. Chase Young seems to be one of those, dare I say, transcendent talents. So you got to go with him. But I'm looking at wide receiver, tight end, and offensive tackle, particularly that left side. I just think you got to do everything you can to find out about Dwayne Haskins, and you got to give him a bit more support than what he had last season. Trent Williams has no intentions of suiting up for y'all anymore, so you're gonna have to get that solidified at the left tackle. I didn't dig way deep into those later rounds to see what they're gonna do about it, because as you know, once you pick Chase Young, you're not gonna be on the board again until the 66th pick, and I don't know what kind of quality you're gonna wind up getting at that draft spot. So you may have to hold that L this year at that spot, but we'll see. But a lot of teams need tight ends, I think so. But the Redskins, they've had a guy by the name of Jordan Reed for several years now, and this guy we just can't. It just ain't happening with the concussions and such. So I look at a guy like maybe from Notre Dame, Cole Kmet. Yeah. I'm looking at Cole Kmet. Maybe he's a guy you can pluck out of Notre Dame and you put him in day one and see what he can do for you. I thought he was a tremendous player at Notre Dame, and it's a weak tight end crop, and he's actually the first one projected at what I was looking at. So maybe you can get him, and then I think again wide receiver. I don't think there's nothing special at wide receiver. I think Terry McLaurin from Ohio State last season, he was a bit of a revelation. I don't think they expected what they got from him. Maybe you go to that well again. Maybe you get a guy like KJ Hill. You bring him in there, and they just call him DC Ohio. You got Haskins, Chase Young, McLaurin, and KJ Hill. Just bring in all the Buckeyes, and surely that will deliver you the goods. So that's where I'm at. The Redskins, get this offense moving. You get Chase Young on defense. I think their defense is up and coming. I think they'll be pretty sturdy, but you got to get some help for your young quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with Jay on that. Given that they're most likely going to pick Chase Young in the first round, we could go ahead and sign, seal, and deliver that and put a little stamp on it and don't notarize it. So I'm going to fast forward over here to the offensive tackle. I think by the time they get around to offensive tackle, being that they had a 66 pick, I'm looking at a guy like Austin Jackson out of USC. I think he'll be one of the guys. Remember earlier we was talking about how we have like 4 guys in the upper tier, and then it's a bit of a drop off. This is one of the guys that's in that drop off category. But you never know. He might turn out to be the best offensive tackle of the draft. Who knows? But he's one of the guys right now that's considered a drop off. Wide receiver, you named it. I forgot that dude even played on the team. I'm gonna be dead serious with you. Their offensive core just ain't about nothing. I'm pretty confident that if you rolled out Alabama offensive core and the Washington Redskins, Alabama about to take some money. That's all it is to it.
Wide receivers, no doubt.
No doubt. So, hey, I'm looking at a wide receiver out of a small college, Liberty, by the name of Antonio Gundy Golden. Listen, listen.
Okay.
These small colleges, they do come out. They produce. We barely watch them. This is a team that might play on the ESPN Plus app. But listen, at the end of the day, they do produce some.
We take it right now. Talent. We watching that right now. If it was on. No, we all would. We'd be like, oh, yeah,
son. Hey, no argument. Yeah. Hey, I'll watch him. Hugh Freeze in the little medical bed up there in the booth. I'll watch it all. You know what I mean? No problem here. And then my third position for them was cornerback. I thought they was lacking in the cornerback position. We did talk about Josh Norman leaving. He's going to go Quentin Dunbar leaving as well. So you need a cornerback. I'm looking at a cat, Troy Pride Jr., coming out of Notre Dame. I think just because of where these picks will be located, that's where I'm getting these names from. Who looks to be available during that time? Now they might go in a different order than we're talking, and they get somebody better. But right now, as it stands, I'm looking at offense tackle, wide receiver, and cornerback. Those are my three guys.
Yeah, just to cut in real quick, that Liberty pick's interesting because that's 3 hours from DC. So if anyone should have the inside track to that guy, you would think it would be Washington.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, the only question here is, are they willing to come off of Chase Young for more picks? I mean, the only thing I would reasonably see is if you say, hey, guys, we really need a left tackle, or we need someone to help out on the offensive line overall. There's a lot of good prospects. Oh, and by the way, I don't know. The receiving core to me looks pretty bad. I would want to get one. So if I know I can move out of the second spot and I'm giving up a prospect that most people think, most people say Chase Young's the best player in the draft by a considerable margin, and he plays the second most important position besides quarterback, you could get some serious draft capital in return. So if you say, hey, all three of these positions, 2 or 3 positions are real decent needs, maybe they would. But it is so hard to look at Chase Young and go, nah, I want some other guys instead. It's just, I don't know if they do it, but that's what Washington has to ask themselves. Are you willing to come off? Because someone's going to want him instead. But I think they're going to stay pat and take him. But
I was just going to say, I think the Redskins should talk to the Dolphins. Just like being their ear. Just come on, man, you come up here and get to it. You know what I mean? And I don't know how many teams will take that, but the Dolphins, like you said, is one of the few teams that can afford to take that jump and won't get hurt by it.
I think if you're Washington, I think you stay the course right now with Chase Young, but I think you got to be listening and got to be standing by the phone waiting to hear offers, because as the more we look at this, they got a lot of holes on this team, and I just think it's imperative that if you don't do something to buffer this offense, you're wasting Dwayne Haskins, because you got to give him a little more help to really give him a fair shot.
Exactly. It's hard to evaluate him when you just don't have a lot around him. So that'll be one of the most interesting things of the draft is, after Burrow goes 1, more than likely, do the Redskins take Young at 2? So let's go ahead and move on. We've probably spent more time on Washington than we ever should. Let's go on to the Giants.
No doubt.
Giants picking number 4. Drink, this one's for you. 4th overall pick and 10 picks overall. Where are the New York Giants looking at in this draft?
I'm looking at the Giants here with that first pick at 4. And I'm thinking, look, we've been saying his name all day, and I think this way he should rightfully end up. Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. I think this is the spot where he would end up at probably one of these New York teams, either them or the Jets. I'm looking at one of those teams he'll end up with. If not, look, linebacker is a spot that they could use some help at. That's where the young guy, Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma, could come in at if they decide they want to go that route. And then my third position is edge rusher. And when I look at an edge rusher, I said this name one time before, and I think this name will come back around. Khalil Kareem, also out of Notre Dame. Listen, I don't know. We don't know with the Giants. I'm a little thrown off with the Giants because last year we thought we had them figured out, and then here come Daniel Jones come 2-stepping through the door. So with the Giants, Gettleman keeps us on our toes. So I'm going to assume that he's going to do the right thing for the right reasons at the right time this year. But if he don't, those are my 3 positions: offensive tackle, linebacker, and edge rusher.
Yeah, I'm with you on offensive lineman and edge rusher. I think up front, there's still a lot to be desired on this football team. I have Tristan Wirfs written down. Also got Jedrick Wills. I think, if you get either one of those guys, I think you'll be satisfied. I also like safety. I'm looking at perhaps a guy like Terrell Lewis and maybe Grant Delpit. Maybe you can get one of those guys early second round if you're fortunate.
You said for safety?
Yeah. Terrell Lewis is a corner, isn't he? No,
he's a linebacker. He's an edge rusher.
Oh, that's why. That's right. That's where I had info. So that was my edge rusher, and Grant Delpit was my safety. So yeah. I don't know. You probably can't get all of those, but perhaps maybe you can get one of those offensive linemen, and then maybe Grant Delpit or Terrell Lewis, which is second round pick.
Yeah, I think the Giants are going to have to go with Isaiah Simmons here. I know it's kind of a lame pick. It's what McShay and Kuiper both have, as long as a couple of guys on NFL.com. But I think Isaiah Simmons is just too elite of a talent let out of the top 5. And I think you're going to see Young go at 2. You're going to see Jeff Odika go to 3 at the Detroit Lions. And then the Giants will be looking at it and go, well, we can play it safe. We can get a tackle. But my God, like, your defense sucks. And Isaiah Simmons is the single best thing you can do to make that defense better right now, today. No questions asked. Day one guy, plug in, and he can do it. You want safety? There you go. You want an edge rusher? There you go. You want a linebacker? There you go. It doesn't matter. He can do whatever you want him to do. So, yeah, I mean, a tackle is very possible. I think you do always want to get more help for your young quarterback. But I think if the Giants see Isaiah Simmons there at 4, I think they would be crazy to not pull the trigger and go ahead and pick him up. How about the Cowboys, Jay? They have 7 picks. They're picking 17th. Who do you think they're going after?
Yeah, they got. I don't think they're another one of these teams. I don't see any really glaring holes that they have, but they did have some key departures in this offseason. They had Travis Frederick. He retired, so you got a fairly big hole at center. I think it's important to replace what you lost in Robert Quinn, who left for a big deal with the Bears. Maybe a guy like Josh Uche, maybe you look at him. I think you got to get a little bit of help opposite DeMarcus Lawrence. And then at cornerback, I know he got beat up in the national championship game, but you don't have Byron Jones any longer. Maybe you look at A.J. Terrell in that mid-first round range. But other than that, I think the Cowboys are one of those teams that outside of those needs, they're pretty solid, at least from a personnel standpoint. But as usual, we'll see how it translates to executing and winning games.
Yeah, with the Cowboys, it's kind of funny because we know how Jared Jones is. So Jared Jones like to go out here, try to get the most bang for his buck. Instead of going to Walmart, he going to the dollar store, stuff like that. He want to sit around here. He hoping somebody get a DUI or a drug bust right before the draft so he can sit there and get them for, pennies on the dollar. But as I look at this, the first position that gives me caution is safety. All right. They lost Jeff Heath, his bad shoulders. And you have 2 safeties that has separated themselves. And I think it's like one of those things, you see a shiny toy and you want to get it. You got Grant Delpit that's going to be out there, and then you got a Xavier McKinney. It's a toss-up. Grant Delpit out of LSU, Xavier McKinney out of Alabama. It's a toss-up. Neither one of them is one of those things where if you get either one of them, it's going to be a great addition to your team. You really can't miss if you get with either one of the guys. And then my next position, I'm going to go to cornerback. You lost Byron Jones. You don't quite know how the other guy is going to handle. So depending on how they strategize this, you'll have a guy by Jeff Glantley coming out of TCU. Another one. These TCU guys started off the year pretty high. I'm sorry, but they kind of just faltered on their way down by the time we got to this point. So a lot of these guys then fell out of the memory of the nation. But you got Jeff Glantley out of TCU, or the guy I mentioned earlier coming out of Auburn, Noah Mbagahi. You got him out there. You still probably have him on the board for a cornerback. And then edge rusher / defensive lineman. One guy I was looking at is Devon Hamilton coming out of Ohio State. One thing I say about Ohio State, they give you a lot of bang for your buck. I can't be mad at them. These guys do, for some reason, transition to the NFL quite well. I would give them credit. So he's one of those guys that was on that vaunted Ohio State defensive line that didn't get as much credit because he played on the inside instead of the outside. But I think he will be a good pickup to replace some of the guys that the Cowboys lost across their defensive line.
Yeah, as far as these guys go, I think y'all are absolutely right in the assessment that they're a team that doesn't need to jump for anybody. It's pretty much whoever they want to see fall to them. I think it's going to be someone on defense. Besides the errant retirement here and there, I mean, you're going to be paying Dak, Zeke, and Cooper a small island nation's GDP. So you're going to have to go. That's going to have to get you by. I hope that's who you're riding with. So hey, that's who you got. So I think on the defensive side of the ball, I would agree that either corner or edge rusher is probably your biggest thing. I think C.J. Henderson's a guy that fits in really nice with Dallas. Nice cover corner, does most things really well. He's not the biggest tackler in the world, but I'm not sure Brian Jones was either. So you're kind of getting what you had a little bit in him, and you could have another guy that could be a really good player. I watched him play a good bit at Florida, and he's real solid. I like him a lot. And then Kalavian Chasen from LSU, if they do go with the edge position, he's a guy that fits in that defense nice and can kind of give you someone opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence who can make a lot of noise. And, when you're talking about defensive ends and edge rushers, having two to pair together is always a lot nicer than just having the one.
Yep.
It makes a lot harder for him to be plugged up. So let's go ahead and finish up with the Eagles drink. They've had 8 picks, and they're picking 21st in the first round. So who are you looking at for them?
Okay, so it was a toss-up between cornerback and wide receiver as far as the biggest need. I do know this offseason they did go out and get some cornerback help. I don't know how confident they're going to feel with that help. But so with that said, I'm going to go with wide receiver first. And I think the wide receiver that they're going to be looking towards is a guy like Justin Jefferson, once again, a big body guy. What I've learned about Carson Wentz, the reason I say this name specifically is because Carson Wentz like bigger body receivers. You seen what he did with Alshon Jeffrey when Alshon Jeffrey first came over to the Eagles. He liked his wide receivers where they could stand tall and reach in the back of the end zone. That is one of Carson Wentz's better thrown balls. If you actually pay attention to when he's playing, because he's a bit of a gunslinger, he likes to make it to where it's a window in the back and his receiver got the best chance over the DB. He's not real privy on to put it on the money in between two defenders type of guy, but he like bigger receivers. Then I go to cornerback, and around that time, I'm looking at a guy like Harrison Hand out of Temple. All right, I think that could be an underrated steal of the draft. He is a guy that a lot of people are not talking about because he played at Temple, but he was a guy that was, in the high echelons of cornerbacks at one time, and he kind of fell off the map. And then I'm looking at linebacker. I'm looking at a guy by the name of Logan Wilson out of, you guessed it, Wyoming. The frigid NFL talent-rich Wyoming. Yeah, I'm looking at that linebacker. I think he could come and make some money. And we talk about the weather. And here's why I like that is the Eagles play in a cold division. Wyoming is considered a cold state. So you get a guy that won't be razzle-dazzled by the weather. He could come on in, take some hits, give some hits. And so when I look at it, that's how I got my board for the Eagles, wide receiver, cornerback, linebacker.
Yeah, I'm with you at wide receiver. It was just criminal what we had to watch Carson Wentz throw the ball to. I mean, it's something we had Georgia's family members out there. Somebody named Greg Ward out there. I mean, it was just absolutely unbelievable. But hey, I'm with you. I got Justin Jefferson on this list. Also got maybe a guy like T. Higgins. I think you need one of those bigger body guys. So I'm with you on that point. I got left tackle as a need as well. Jason Peters, longtime stalwart out there. He's getting up in age, and those guys mutually agreed to part ways. So I think you brought up Josh Jones earlier. Obviously, I don't think they'll be able to get both of those guys because they're both projected, mid to late first round guys, I believe. And then, I had this pegged wrong, so I'm gonna shift fire because Jalen Mills, and I just remember this. He's moving from cornerback to safety, so you would think with Mills and McLeod back there, they'd be set at safety, which means cornerback is still in need, even though you brought in Darius Slay, you got Nickel Roby-Coleman, he's going to be your nickel. So with that in mind, you do need another cornerback, and I'm looking maybe you can snag a guy like Jalen Johnson from Utah. That we heard about Utah's defense; they was so churched up throughout the season. Some of it well deserved, some of it not. But they got some guys out there. They were very impressive. Until the Pac-12 title game. So we got to put some respect on the name at some point. And wide receiver, get that left tackle position straightened out, and then keep buffering that secondary. You're gonna need it.
Yeah, I agree that wide receiver is probably the most pressing concern. T. Higgins is a guy I like a lot, big frame, like you were saying, Drake. You get a guy like Jeffrey sort of size. I think Higgins is about 6'4". Definitely a guy can just go up and get it. We talked about it before. You got a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Sometimes he just puts it up and they just go get the ball. So, but a guy I really like if they don't go receiver in the first round is Kenneth Murray. I think Kenneth Murray is going to be one of those gems of the draft that we look back and go, yeah, like this guy. I mean, I don't know. I watched a couple games of Oklahoma. I watched that dude was everywhere, and he's got the nice nice hybrid. He's somewhere
He had to
between
be.
an end and a linebacker. I think he'd fit in really well with that Philly defense. So if they go with him at 21, you come back in the second round, say like Chase Claypool, maybe from Notre Dame, another big guy you're looking at, that would probably be there in the second round, or another guy like him. Again, the receiver depth is really good. So if you got to come back and get one in the second round, it's not the end of the world. So if I'm the Eagles and I get there and Kenneth Murray's on the board, I might just want to grab him up.